Ah, well, I certainly am very glad that you could make it. Please take a seat. Oh, don't worry about being a little bit late. I am an artist. My timekeeping is usually not the best. Admittedly, I was very well on time for the conference, very well on time for you, but it's perfectly fine. Don't worry about being a little bit tardy. In any case, how are you doing? No, I did not intentionally form a lackluster impression of a friend's character. I was merely asking. You're more interested in how I'm doing? Well, given that I am a little bit ahead of you in the drinks part of our drinks and conversation this evening, I'm feeling okay. The end of a stressful period and a chance to relax with pleasant company. Pretty hard to beat that, I would say. You want to talk about poetry, huh? Well, for one thing, if you were hoping I would like you, that I would write you many love poems, I'm afraid it's not my forte. For whatever reason, I'm, well, much better at other things. Love poems I can express in a non-poetic way my feelings for another, as disappointing as I'm sure that may be. Perhaps one day that changes, but for now, my poetry has always been an act in expressing what I can't find a way to express normally. Expressing what I can't find a way to say via even the most honest of sentences. It just doesn't come out of my brain, so I kind of throw words around until it feels right. And when it feels right, I know it's saying what I wanted to say, even if it may not always be obvious to everybody what it says. Art is also very, well, let me ask you something. Did you ever watch the movie The Wolf of Wall Street? Oh, such a massively different world to the world of the arts, you may think. But they do this little bit in that film, sell me this pen. Now in the end, if you ask the wonderful human being known as Mr. Belfort in real life to sell you a pen, he'll give you some nonsense jargon about how you can only sell someone something they already want. So you would ask them, are you in the market for a pen? How long have you been looking for a pen? What kind of pens do you normally buy? This sort of thing. To establish what your client really wants. And first off, I am nowhere near naive enough to be sold that that is his idea of salesmanship. That he was not cold calling people and convincing them that what they really wanted to do with thousands of their dollars was to punt it into his useless stock ideas. Now, and the reason I can say I understand salesmanship more than someone who's ostensibly made an incredible living off of selling is that poets are the ultimate in that department. As a poet, I'm the ultimate salesman. And think about it. I can't go up to you and say, how long have you been in the market for a poem? We sell you our ideas, our dreams, our fears and goals, our very consciousness as a matter of urgency and great interest through presentation, pageantry, and not a little pretentiousness. It is so important to be able to convince someone that something is good, whether it's good or not. You could have a poem that says nothing but feels like it says something, and it will resonate more with people than a poem that says a lot but is difficult to interpret. I suppose you could compare it to the difference between classical music and a pop song, something like that. And you know what's really funny about all this? I did sell you something, but not poetry. What I sold you there was a completely false narrative. When I write poetry, I'm writing for an audience of one. If I don't like the poem, it sucks. Doesn't matter how many other people might like it. If I do like the poem, it's great, no matter how many people may hate it. That's it. I pick and tear at it until it is what I want it to be. It's not a science. It's not about breaking down demographics and finding pressure points which to sell someone on. It's not about exploiting the fear of missing out or convincing people that marginal gain is massively important. It's just about what feels right to me. And only after I'm happy with it in my own inexplicable little way do I let it fly off into the world and do what it will do. Leave selling to the cynical world of money. Artists care for their work like most people care for their children. It's the purest legacy you can ever leave. It's at the end of your life you can look back and say, this is what I did, and I gave it everything I have. That is self-expression. That is art. That is everything. And I find it very hard to explain that without ultimately delving into poetry itself, because to me the real difference between a great poem and not is that the great is written for your own project, your own purity, your own expression of the soul, and the not is written because you had to write, because you had a deadline, because you felt you hadn't put out something in a while, because something other than. It came straight from my soul and I can't explain it. There are many writing prompts that are very good for writing. There are many ideas and thoughts about how to beat writer's block. There are many systems and methods to try and keep yourself productive, and the simple reality is that's not how productivity works for an artist. This isn't about a 9 to 5. This isn't about a constant, steady rate of productivity. This is about short flashes of hyper-productive moments. Hyper-productive. Well, it seems big-headed of me to say brilliance, but certainly in the case of some artists you could say that for sure. And in the end it's such an outpouring of emotion and feeling and intelligence and joy and despair and so many different things that it almost becomes hard to track yourself. I'm kind of tapping into it now because I don't know what I said 2 minutes ago. All I know is it was true. Unless it was the thing about, you know, pen selling and how a poet is a salesperson, because that's, at least in good poetry, bollocks. That in certain poets, don't get me wrong, I think there are people in this industry who sell the perception of depth. How do I compare this? It's there's a certain level to where you can present something as deep and complex while it's actually very simple, and therefore it makes people feel intelligent because they perceive it, and they perceive it as deep and complex, and they think they see all this depth there when really it's a reflection of the water. It's just very base level, very obvious, very in your face, very there. There's not really much to understand, but it can make people feel like they understand, and people don't like not understanding. You did ask me to talk about poetry. Well, in the end, there's strangely not that much you can really say. You end up going in cycles of saying similar sorts of things in different ways, trying to explain yourself in different ways, which again is, I suppose, the poet's curse, to try and find the perfect way to say something when no perfection exists. And so, as I say, I rely on the perfect way to say it to myself as the only metric I will ever have. If other people like that, great. If they hate it, great. I don't know. It's... In any case, I think I've just ranted on for a good 10 minutes without almost letting you speak. You just want to listen to me? That's charming. But, well, instead of me trying to find ways to explain, seeing as you said you didn't really know my stuff, maybe it's better if I find something to directly say, no? For instance, I could directly say that you look amazing and that I want to rip your clothes off with my teeth. I thought that might make you blush just a little bit. I could also say that for whatever reason, talking to you feels like it does something. I could say the things I'm saying to many people and I would feel unheard. Even if you maybe don't entirely know exactly what I mean, partly because I'm somewhat obtuse. I still feel like it's getting somewhere, like it's being understood at a level which is important. If not complete and utter 100% of what's in my head, it's at the very least enough to get by as understanding. I mean, I tell you what, my dear. How about a test? Yeah, a test. So I tell you what, I've had a poem for a little while that I consider a riddle that can be solved in a few different ways, but will lead to the same answer inevitably. And I can promise you that I can't change my answer. So how about this? I'll read it out to you. I'll give you a written copy as well. I'll give you a written copy to take away with you. And all I want is for you to tell me the answer to the riddle. Well, the riddle is very simple. The poem is called Pandora, and as you've probably heard the story of Pandora's box, the poem is actually about a lot of things, to be fair. But the ending question is, what's in the box? And if you really pay attention, you should be able to tell me what is in the box. There are some people in the world who already know the correct answer. The knowers should stay silent to let the unknowing find out for themselves. That is important. Anyway, on to your private reading. You know, a lot of people would be extremely jealous of getting such a reading. You should be appreciative. Well, Pandora. Evidently, it's all in the framing. How to make it look like the cat killed itself. And they say what you don't know can't hurt you. I shouldn't need a punchline. It's why so many put a gun in their mouths, or their faith in the clouds. The knowledge may drive you mad. You can't escape the box if you only think inside it. Even the smartest amble on, unsure of what ails them. Maybe it's not worth knowing. Ignorance is bliss. But not for you. The everyday misses everything. Normality is an easy place to hide. Look past your home, past the names and faces you call your own. Levels. Ambition needs direction. Past time to climb. The ladder awaits. Fall past the lost genius of the dead as you learn to dance with the devil inside your head. Gentle steps. Did you ever ask what's at the top? Truth is, it's obvious. Learn what you sold your soul for. Understand? You should already know. That's the point. So, do you know what's in the box?